Hello everybody, my name is Jeff Ofterheide, and today we're going to be giving you the Methods and Materials 101 on how to make kombucha tea. This is the end product right here, and this is kind of what we're going to be after. If you notice, it's in a glass container, and it's going to be ready to drink here in about another day or two. Anyways, that being said, some of the materials that you do need is a calculator, some organic cane sugar. There are many different types of sugar out there. You can use honey, you can use turbinado, I believe is how it's pronounced. They also have refined white sugar. I would highly recommend that you don't use that. This one you can pick up at Whole Foods. We have tea. You need different types of tea. We have white tea, we have green tea, and we have our black teas. We need rubber bands to securely fashion our handkerchief to the top, and as you can see right here, we have a handkerchief, and we also have a thermometer to get the temperature reading. We have measuring devices here, so we can measure out our sugar, and we have a container to measure out our liquid. And finally, probably the most important, is we have our starter liquid. Now we can get this from any bottle of kombucha out there, and that's probably the biggest lie of them all, is that you need to go online and purchase this starter kit for $100 or however much they're selling it for. You go out and you buy a bottle of any type of kombucha, and let's put it inside of this container right here. And what we're going to do is we're saving this, and we're protecting it from contaminants here with a coffee filter on top, and it's being securely fashioned down by this fastener ring up here. Finally, what we have here is a cooking pot. Now this is, I believe, stainless steel. And what we're going to be doing is putting the liquid in here. Now we have our measurements already planned out. What we're going to be doing is, for the starter liquid, we want a smaller amount to give a better chance of success to our kombucha blend, or kombucha brew. So what I've done is I've put 2 liters of water in this container, and what we're going to do is we're going to be adding that to the metal container. Okay, so we're just going to add 2 liters of water in. Now, we want to be concerned on what kind of water we use. There's many different types. Of course, there's tap water, there's distilled water, and there's carbon block filtered water. We want to make sure that we have the purest water available, because any contaminants will be transferred and absorbed by the kombucha blend. Distilled water is preferred because it is considered dead water. It will magnetize, so to speak, to any... Oh, geez, wow, this is great. What it will do is the distilled water, it is considered dead water, and what it'll do is it'll actually draw out all the nutrients in the tea. Coincidentally, when you put it in your body, it has a magnetizing effect, and it will also draw out toxins in your system as well. So we're going to be using distilled water here, and you can pick that up in any good grocery store. We're going to be adding 2/3 cup of the sugar right here, the organic cane sugar. Now, the calculations are roughly per liter of water, you want to add roughly between 70 and 80 grams of sugar. And also, as we add this sugar here, okay, we're going to want roughly 5 grams of tea per liter. Now, I've done some calculations, and that roughly means that in this particular brand, and you have to do look at each specific brand of tea. They're going to give you the weight and measurements on the actual box. It actually comes out to about 6.5, 7 bags. So in this case, I'm going to use 7 bags of tea. So we're going to actually wait, and Chris is going to cut that out later. We're going to bring this over to the stove here. We're going to boil this water here. Now, in order to make sure that the water is under the most sterile conditions, we're going to boil this water for roughly, 2 or 3 minutes, okay? This is going to absorb all of the all of the sugar, and it's going to create a nice little bath. Okay. Now, one of the other critical portions of creating this nutrient bath is making proof positive that we prepare the tea properly. So we're going to read the instructions here. This one says to bring just to a just below a boil and steep for 1 or 2 minutes. So that's what we're going to do for this particular tea. Green tea is different and black tea is different. And I would recommend that we just stick with the plain teas when we first get started here, because what's going to happen is you start adding different flavors. If you add different oils, that may actually do is actually kill the SCOBY. The SCOBY stands for a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. Right, SCOBY, Joe?
Correct.
Okay, so as we're bringing that to a boil, why don't you come over and take a look, and let's take a look and see how that's doing, if we can. That's just coming to a boil. And while we're doing that, we can start preparing our tea. I'm going to take out all of our tea bags here and just lay them out on the table, or we can actually lay them in a cup so they don't get wet. Now, you may notice when you go to the store that the different prices or tea actually comes in different prices. This actually is due to the way that the different teas are processed. You're literally, the cheaper teas, you're literally getting the scraps that are swept off the floor. The more expensive teas are the little bit higher grade. Probably what you would want if you want the maximum benefit to your health is the actual tea leaves themselves, or the plant material. And you can actually boil those or put those in water and actually let the oils from the leaves actually permeate the water. All right, so now what we're doing is we're just waiting for this water to come to a boil. Again, I highly recommend that you use distilled water. If you use tap water, it has fluoride and other nutrients in it, I would say detrimental nutrients. I'm not sure you could call those nutrients, maybe dead bacteria, dead flesh, whatever the chlorine kills and the fluoride is supposed to help. You can actually hear this starting to come to a boil. Now, when this actually does come to a boil, we're going to let it boil for a little bit, and we're going to let it simmer, and then we're going to add the tea. One of the critical components to brewing kombucha is making sure that you properly have the temperature control. So in order to do this, I purchased a thermometer, an electronic thermometer, and this gives very accurate readings very quickly. So if you are very impatient, if you have a difficult time waiting for things, this will give you an accurate reading right away. The ideal temperature for kombucha tea is roughly between 75, that's kind of on the low end if you can, and about 84 degrees max. Any higher than that, it can kill any enzymes, it can kill actually the culture itself, and that's not what we want, okay? What we want is a nice, even environment for the bacteria and the yeast to actually have the ability to ferment and produce the nutrients that are going to be beneficial for our bodies. All right, let's go over and take a look at how our water bath is doing. And it's starting to boil a little bit. You see the little bubbles in there. Now at this point, we're getting ready to add tea to the water, and maybe perhaps I should have done this a little bit sooner, but we want to make sure that we avoid any foreign contaminants that we can help or control. So I'm just going to put on my lab coat here that I just happen to have sitting around, and we're going to button this up right here. Now we're going to take this tea right here, and we're going to be adding it to our water. And now what I need to do is actually, I'm going to turn the water off. Okay, I'm going to take it down right below a boil, and when it stops boiling, I'm going to add this tea. Now, in this case, I have a little bit of a larger pot, so the strings were a little bit too short to hang over the sides. So it's okay just to cut them off. We're going to toss them in. We're going to let them sit as the directions about 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, and then we're going to fish them out, and we're going to extract any of the juices. We're going to put them in here, and then dump the rest in there, and then we're going to be ready to let the nutrient bath sit and cool down. Again, that's why we have our thermometer here, so we can judge when would be the best time to add our starter liquid. Be adding the tea to the sugar water here. Okay, we're going to let it sit. We're stir it around a little bit. And this is white tea, so we're going to let this sit for roughly about 1 minute to 2 minutes. Now, as you can see, take a look at here, we had one of the tea bags break open a little bit, so we're going to have to address that. That is okay, because we're going to improvise, and we're going to show you how to improvise a little bit. We're just going to fish these out. We're just going to put them in one of our containers here. Now again, it's not really too critical that we have granules of tea in there. We'll be able to get those out here in no time. It works pretty easy if we have coffee filters, but in this case, let's just assume that we don't. Okay. Temperature is 181 degrees Fahrenheit. It has to come down roughly about 100 degrees before we can add anything in it. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually kind of impromptu create a filter. So normally what this would be used for is to cover our nutrient bath and our starter liquid. In this case, we're going to just use it to filter out any stray tea leaves at this point. Okay. I will add that we want to make sure that until the colony is well established, we want to make sure that everything is sterile and everything is clean and everything is safe. So having any of the other foreign bodies in there at this point could be detrimental to the colony. So we're just going to take this over here. And again, you want to make sure that you have all food grade material. We're just going to pour that in slowly. That filtered perfectly. All the tea leaves are on top. And now we're ready to just let this cool down. Again, it's also important to note we want to keep this covered while it's cooling as well, because it might take a little bit longer, but it's going to keep out any foreign contaminants, it's going to keep out dust, it's going to keep out any molds, it's going to keep out any fruit flies when it gets to an acceptable level. When I first started brewing kombucha, there have been times where I just created the tea mixture and I let it sit, and then I came back and I just threw it all out because I found a fruit fly in it. As to when the liquid cooled down to an appropriate temperature, they just fly right in. And so this is actually a good way to keep them all out. And this is how we're going to keep them out of our liquid here. As you can see right here, this one that we've already started already has a cloth on top, and it's protecting it. So this is the final product, and this is what we're after right here. So we're going to let this cool down, and when it does, we're going to come back and we're going to add our starter liquid right here. So what we're doing here is we're allowing the nutrient bath to cool down. Now normally this would take all day. Maybe not all day, but well, normally it would take at least 8 hours to cool down. With this smaller batch here, again, the reason we're making a smaller batch here is so that we can give the SCOBY a little bit more of a time to establish itself. The smaller you start off with, the easier it is going to be to grow the colony. So what we're going to do is we're going to be adding the nutrient bath to this here once we get to the appropriate temperature. Now, we've waited a while, and the temperature currently reads 96 degrees. We're going to let this cool off about another 6 to 8 degrees, and then we're going to add it to our starter liquid here, which is roughly about 10%. It would be a good starting point. Okay, so then we're going to put it in this starter liquid. Again, it is covered. It has a filter on the top, and it is fastened down by a ring here. And we're going to let this sit. We're going to find a nice place to let it rest for roughly about a week and a half to 2 weeks, and you will start to see a SCOBY forming on top. What I'd like you to do is take a look at this one right here, and you can get a good look at what a good, nice forming SCOBY is taking place here. And what we're going to be doing is we'll be taking a sample of this. We'll actually taste it, and there's some actual other methods that we'll go over in subsequent videos that we'll actually talk about how we can test the pH of it, how we can use a hydrometer to test out what the alcohol and the sugar content of this are. Again, this is just a basic class just to get you started, and once we do, and once we start getting this kicked off, we'll have a nice consistent batch that will hopefully last you, or at least a SCOBY that will last you the rest of your life. And that's a wonderful thing. And again, you can cut that up, and you can actually share it with your friends. You can actually start other little SCOBYs. For example, let me just get this one right here. This one right here is another little SCOBY that I actually started in a mason jar, and I covered it up so that it wouldn't spill. Again, my hands have been washed, and I am taking the utmost precaution to make sure it's not contaminated, but you can take a look at that. And you can see that there is a baby SCOBY forming on top there. So again, you can take this liquid and apply the same principles over and over and over again to create additional SCOBYs. You can buy all of these from your local health food store, such as Whole Foods. We have a Vitamin Cottage here in Colorado. We also have a Sunflower, so you can go out, and I know the biggest and most popular brand right now is GT Dave's. We also have High Country, and there's another brand out here that I can't really remember the name of at this point, but that's irrelevant. Anyways, you just add that, and that's what this is right here. And again, you'll form a SCOBY, and just make sure it has the proper nutrient bath. So we're going to make sure that this cools down another 8 degrees, and then we'll add our nutrients. Okay, so now we've reached the optimal temperature. What we're going to be doing is transferring this liquid into our starter bath here. Okay, so we're going to take off the filter here, remove the probe, and again, we want to use food grade glass. Some people say that they'd like to use a like plastic or food grade plastic. But you know, not too long ago, Nalgene, or those Nalgene bottles, were said to be safe. And what has come out recently in the news? Exactly. So again, this is actually when it gets going is actually it's actually used for chelation. It's used for other things. So during the chelation process, it binds to heavy metals. I would avoid using anything made of lead, anything made of metal. Glass is time-tested, mother-approved, and we're going to use glass, and that's what we recommend here. So we're just going to add this. Okay. And we're going to seal the top. And rest assured that in a few weeks, we will have a SCOBY forming on top. Alright, so that is secure. There's nothing getting in the top there. And we want to make sure we keep it out of the light. Any any ultraviolet rays may actually damage the kombucha cultures inside. So we're going to find a nice warm place for this to rest. And then after that, we can go back and check it. Again, what what I also like to point out is that when you start to get a bigger SCOBY, what can happen is you can buy a bigger glass so you can produce more of a yield. Now, when you produce more of a yield, of course, you can move up to actually bottling the stuff and actually drinking it on a regular basis. Right now, we're just, again, of course, getting it started. So once this is becoming more of a mature SCOBY, we can just take this, as in this case right here, we can take that SCOBY, create a nutrient bath. Again, we'll probably use maybe, this could probably hold about 6 liters, a little bit more, but 6 would probably be about the max. And then we would add that SCOBY to here. And again, the whole process just starts again. So you can see how calculations are incredibly important. Again, those ratios are roughly between about 70 to 80 grams of sugar per liter and about 5 grams of tea per liter. So that's key. So anyways, on this bottle right here, notice that Chris has put a sticker temperature gauge on here. This is a wonderful thing because it's very cheap. It's like $1.50. It's not required for creating a starter batch, but what it does do is it does give you a good indication as to if your brew is at the right temperature, and I think it's well worth it, and it's very economical. So again, right now, and Chris has of course attached this to the bottom here because with minimal amounts of liquid, it'll be able to get an accurate reading of the temperature. So I think that's very important, and I'm very glad that he did that.
What temperature? Now we cut in. What temperature would you want it to be at when you said put it into a warm place? What's the range?
That's a fantastic question. So the range that we'd like to keep it is roughly between 78 degrees and 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that's the optimal temperature. These things are incredibly resilient. Again, this has been around for thousands of years, and if you believe that they had a indoor heating for that period of time, they just didn't. So of course it's gonna, when the cooler temperature is going to slow down in the fermentation process, and it's going to take longer. So take that into account. The colder the liquid, the longer it's going to take to actually ferment, and the longer it's going to take to actually produce a batch that's actually usable. Now, in future presentations, we're going to talk about more of the advanced things that we can do to ensure that our kombucha brew is ready, as far as getting a pH tester, a hydrometer, and other such things, and that will allow us to create or repeat the type of brews that we want. Additionally, I would like to also add that we just want to stick. Nice. We just want to stick with the general teas, the white, the green, and the black. And we'll get a little bit more exotic in future presentations. We'll show you how to add fruits. We'll show you how to add different things to actually increase the healing properties of this. Again, this is the final product, and this is what we love and we cherish as far as a health elixir. And thank you very much for joining us.